Hare Krishna, Namaste, Chapter 7. Vyasaya Vishnurupaya Vyasarupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidhiye Vasishtaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Namaste. We have completed 6 chapters so far. Let us offer our sincere gratitude to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, at His lotus feet for allowing us to study Gita every single day without any interruptions, both for the speaker and to the audience. This is certainly not at all possible without His grace, and it is not our achievement that we were able to deliver and hear these 6 chapters. It is Krishna's will that we completed the first 6 chapters successfully. Likewise, let's sincerely beg at the feet of Krishna to help us to complete the rest of the chapters without any interruptions or difficulties. With that prayerful mood, let's start the second part or portion of Gita, that's starting from chapter 7. But before we actually get to the chapter 7 slokas, we like to give some introduction. When we started this daily Gita initially, in the very first, we did not give much background. We went straight into the first sloka of the chapter 1. Therefore thought that at this juncture, it would be much appropriate to fulfill the gap with some details of introduction. When we started today's session, we started with the sloka Vyasaya Vishnurupaya Vyasarupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidhiye Vasishtaya Namo Namaha. What it says is that sage Vyasadeva, who composed various literatures, especially Mahabharata, which is his magnum opus with 125,000 slokas. It is considered to be Panchamo Vedaha, meaning the 5th Vedas, besides the 4 Vedas. In fact, Mahabharata is appreciated even better than Vedas. The reason is because the essence of all the Upanishads has been presented within this Mahabharata, which is nothing but Bhagavad Gita. Sarvopanishado Ghavaha Dhokta Gopalanandanaha Partho Vastaha Sudhir Bhokta Duktam Gitamritam Mahat. It is the essence of all the Upanishads. Therefore, by studying Bhagavad Gita, we know what is there in other Upanishads, what is there in Vedas. Pretty much we completed the entire scriptures. And then the person who spoke Bhagavad Gita is not an ordinary person. Satyam Satyam Punas Satyam Udritya Bhujam Uchyate Vedar Shastram Param Nasti Nadevam Keshavat Param. It is said in all the scriptures that the Supreme Lord, one who has no equal, no one is greater than him, is being confirmed. And that Supreme Lord is Sri Krishna himself. Satyam Satyam Satyam. Again and again and again, this truth has been established in all the scriptures. So we saw the author is Vyasadeva, who is none other than the Supreme Lord himself, who was incarnated as Vyasadeva. And we saw the greatness of Bhagavad Gita, and we'll learn more about that in a bit. We spoke about the person who has been glorified in Bhagavad Gita, and the person who spoke Bhagavad Gita, that is Sri Krishna, his greatness. Now, let's understand the origin of Gita, the reason for Gita. When the great war, which was initiated by Duryodhana, was about to begin, Arjuna was fully ready for action with bow and arrow in his hand. At that juncture, he was overcome by his devotion to his teachers, his compassion for his relatives and his fear regarding the wholesale destruction of the lineage, the parampara. By doing so, the family tradition is lost. Laying down his bow and arrow, Arjuna declared to Govinda that I will not fight in this war, and he sat down silent. In that state, Arjuna took refuge at the feet of Lord Sri Krishna, pleading, please tell me for certain what is good for me. I am your disciple. Instruct me. Since Arjuna pleaded to Krishna, please teach me what is good for me, hence Krishna gave him full instruction, starting from the real nature of the self, Atma, then of the Supreme Self, Paramatma, and the paths which constitute to means to attain liberation, Atma or Paramatma. Thus Krishna had taught the Vedanta itself. That is the conclusion of all the Vedas which is spoken in Bhagavad Gita. Vedas used Arjuna as a pretext and manifested as Gita. Sri Krishna, whom the Vedas speak, glorifies, used Arjuna as an excuse to deliver the message in the form of Gita Shastra. Now let's see what are the important topics that's taught in Gita. Gita mainly teaches Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Of these, Karma Yoga consists of performing penance, charity, pilgrimage to holy rivers, holy places, visiting holy shrines, temples, performing yagyas, daily recitation of the Vedas and Upanishads, performing any of these things without interruption till one attains the result. Whereas Jnana Yoga involves constant contemplation of the nature of the self, the determining attribute of which have already been learned from the scripture, various scriptures. By persons of pure mind, freed from raga and dvesha, liking and disliking, through the performance of Karma Yoga. So the Karma Yoga is done, and through Karma Yoga, a person leads to Jnana Yoga. And in the Jnana Yoga, the person completely contemplates on his self. Bhakti Yoga means having loving devotion exclusively for the Supreme Lord and being engaged in meditation on Him, singing His glories, chanting His names, offering prayers to Him, doing archanas, and so forth. These three will each have a mixture of all three methods. Following any one of these means it is essential that the person who is practicing also performs called Atma Yoga by sitting down in a proper posture, controlling the external oriented senses and focusing the mind on the self. The vision of the self cannot be attained only through Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. One has to also try to learn to meditate inwardly. Direct perception of the self can be achieved only through the proper meditation, Atma Yoga, that we also discuss in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. For a person whose goal is attaining Atma, have a vision of the self, enjoy within one's Atma, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are the path. And for a person who wants to attain the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, then Bhakti Yoga is the path. But for one to come to the stage of Bhakti Yoga, getting rid of contrary knowledge that body is the self, and also the contrary knowledge that there is only one Atma. These things has to be removed. Body and Atma are not one and the same. Atma is different and body is different. And there is no one Atma. There are multiple, many, uncountable Atmas. But there is only one Paramatma, one Bhagavan, one Supreme Lord. And all these Atmas are subservient to that Supreme Lord. And this knowledge cannot be attained unless and until one goes through the process initially to understand the self. Therefore, for one to attain the Supreme Lord, just Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga is not sufficient, and it will not give the result. One has to perform Bhakti Yoga. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to establish the supremacy of Sri Krishna, and the process that has been explained is Bhakti Yoga. It is through Bhakti Yoga that one can attain Sri Krishna. There is no other mean. This Bhagavad Gita has totally 18 chapters, which can be grouped into 3. The first group section, which is from chapter 1 to chapter 6, deals with the nature of the self, that is Atma, and the yoga related to it. They are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. And in the second section, it speaks about the Supreme Lord, Supreme Self, and how to attain the Supreme Lord. That has been elaborated in the second part, that is 7th through 12th chapter. So the point here is, by following and practicing what has been told in first 6 chapters, one will attain the vision of self, but then that will sprout one into Bhakti Yoga. It is like middle part of the sugar cane is the sweetest portion. So the middle part of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7 through 12, are the best part in the entire Gita. And then chapter 13 through 18 is nothing but further elaboration of the topics that has been discussed from chapter 1 to 12. More details have been given in the last section of the Gita. There are many acharyas who has written commentaries on Gita. Adi Shankaracharya, Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhvacharya, Yamunacharya, Vedanta Desika, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Prabhupada, and there are many commentaries are there. For our daily study purpose, the books that we are referring and deriving the commentaries are from Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada, Gita Bhushana by Baladev Vidyabhushan, Sarartha Varshini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Gita Bhashya by Sripad Ramanujacharya, Gitartha Sangraha by Yamunacharya, and Tatparya Chandrika and Gitartha Sangraha Raksha by Vedanta Desika. In our next session, we'll see synopsis of each chapter that we have covered so far, and then connect that to chapter 7. Namaste, Hare Krishna.